Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We have Thomas Onewolf with us from Taos, New Mexico, who is of the Taos Pueblo Indian nation there, and is also a medicine man in his own right, having studied with different medicine men for many, many years in many different parts of the country. He's going to be speaking with us about his own personal life as a medicine man, as well as a new project he is working on that has actually global implications for our healthcare system, and in a sense creating a healthcare system which will be for all and just the way you would imagine it in your highest of dreams. So thanks so much for being on the show, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. If you could please give our audience a little bit of an idea of your own background and how you came into the area of medicine in the first place.
I think the best and the easiest way to maybe tell you or explain to somebody is to let them know that my life was chosen for me in the traditional manner. Mm-hmm. I was chosen to the medicine ways at birth by my mother and raised traditionally by her and my uncle and my grandparents.
And this was where?
This was up in the Pacific Northwest, in a small tribe there where I was born, mm-hmm. on the reservation. And then I was gifted to a medicine man in the Southwest to walk 37 years with him. Mm. And it was in that upbringing that I was sheltered from what the world was doing. And the only thing that I came to realize early on was that the medicine man took me through a time because he could see these times and that I was to be self-educated. And so all of my learning experiences and my education came from reading and identifying things in the world that could teach me without another human being being attached to it. Mm-hmm. The elder medicine man that I was with at no point could read or write, so it was up to me to explain to him as I was learning.
What was the language that you communicated? Was it English?
We communicated in English because he knew that was a necessity. Mm-hmm.
Was that your first language?
English was my first language based on my mother saw and foresaw what was going to happen to my people. Mm. And so it was a boundary breaker, if you will, so that I could communicate. But at the same time, I still enjoy a lot of our native tongue that allows me to properly do my medicine.
Wonderful. So you took on the task of walking with this medicine man and becoming self-educated as per his teachings and instruction. And then what happened in your life?
Well, a lot of people think of my life as maybe I've been outgoing or I've been out in the world some. But it wasn't up until, a lot of people don't realize that it wasn't until into the 1990s that I knew who the President of the United States was.
Is that so?
I didn't need to know those kind of things, and I didn't need to know what was going on in the world. I knew what was going on in the mother, and that was what was important to my medicine walk. I identified after 90, I was called out of that mountain to walk in that goodness. And so when I look back on it now, I make people laugh because I let them know that I got my vacation before I got the job. And so that's where my life has been to this point. It isn't that I rejected the world or thought that it was awful. I didn't know it, so I didn't want it. Yes, I had to do certain things in the world coming through my years. I paid my dues to, as the Americans would call it, to their cause, and I was in the service. And all I remember about being in the Army was that they cut all my hair off, and there was a 3-year hole in my life. And then I was returned back to that life that I do. And from the 60s on, I tried to live that life to the greatest majority in my traditional ways. And that brings me up to today when there are certain things in a very spiritual walk of the Native American at his depth that you don't question things. When the old one or the elder or my dad or something is important enough to call me from what I am doing, I don't say, well, why do I need to do that? There's something a lot of people don't realize. Our native tongue did not have the word why. All things in life were met with acceptance. And when my dad would say to do something, I accepted that. I didn't question him as to why it needed to be done, or those kind of things. And so I was brought back out of my mountain to create this place that I live at now. And I very quietly did that, as I have very quietly assembled the work I'm doing now, because after so many years now, my father has summoned me again and said, now do this. And so for some months now, I have been doing this thing.
Mm. This presents such a different worldview than the one that I was raised with, and most Americans were. And a lot of it is, our conceptual framework is so much embedded in language. And to hear, Thomas, that there isn't a word why in your language is fascinating. And it bespeaks a kind of an automatic acceptance and maybe even level of understanding that inherent in the culture. I mean, that would be a supposition I would make from kind of listening into this. I don't know if that's true, but it kind of presupposes that possibility, that there is an inherent knowing of connections and of the interconnectedness of all things, that the word why would almost be considered maybe tugging at that, tugging at the strands, so to speak.
One of the things that I always love when my elders share with me, and when these old ones speak, it's not very often, but the wisdom is they can say 3 words and you've just received from them the Encyclopedia Britannica. But they say things like they will receive a negative answer from someone. And so they're quite willing, they don't want to know why that answer came, they're quite willing to go home and wait till you've arrived at the right answer. What people say to me doesn't necessarily have an impact. So I don't automatically, like a lot of people I meet, come up with the question why. If you said something, that's what you were feeling at that time to say, and that's okay with me. I may not agree with it, but I'll go home until either I do agree with it or you change the answer. Because nothing impacts my life at that level.
I see. This is truly wise. It's also very special to be seated with somebody who hasn't bothered to learn about the things that we have ordinarily come to regard as necessary knowledge, such as the names of the presidents of the United States over the past 25 years, or any such things as that. It's you remind me in a sense of it's funny, you're from Taos, and I'm just playing with words for a moment to say the Taoists, no doubt brethren from China, have this attitude of just always being one with nature and one with the flow of things. And circumstances and conditions come and go. Different administrations, emperors, what have you, and they just keep hoeing, planting, eating, loving, smiling, and another emperor came and went? Ho-hum. It's almost got a little of that feeling to it.
Yeah.
Does that coordinate with, harmonize with?
Well, it certainly does. And my mother probably said the most profound thing that I heard in my life. And it describes the Indian probably better than anything I've heard. And she said, "Oh, everybody used to always tell me about the Great Depression." She said, "We didn't know there was one." Our lives didn't change any by those global events. Our lives did not change because of certain global events that were in the negative columns, such as the world wars and things. They had no impact on us. I had some very, very holy men, and I still have a few, that I hold very, very close to me in spirit, that are still with us, that couldn't understand World War II to the depth and degree where they couldn't understand why they must go and fight in that war. They weren't mad at anybody. And they couldn't understand why you asked him to be mad. The whole foreign concept of man's life and walk in these times is explained in that way. And that's the true Indian belief system for him. Thinks in the purest, maybe albeit simplistic way, but it is a purest way. And, I don't want to know why the United States and Iraq are having words. I would rather know why there's a sick child in Iraq. I would rather know that they're planting corn in this country. Those are important things to me. What man has created in these times, I don't ask him why he owns anthrax at all. I don't ask him why there's nuclear weapons. I just am hopeful that he will, like certain problems that are going on that are in a process of being fixed, I just am hopeful for the little one's sake that man doesn't have to explode the devices to find out they were wrong.
So Thomas, you were under the tutelage, so to speak, of a number of medicine men, and you made reference to one in particular for some 37 years. Could you share with us some of what the training involved and what comprises Native American medicine as you were exposed to it?
There's a huge misconception that people see when they hear the word medicine man. And there's the biggest misconception I've found is that people think it can be taught. It can't. It is something you are, and it is something you walk. And either you are or you ain't. And the old one didn't teach me. He guided me. He guided me because he was one. And he walked his talk. He walked it. And I just walked beside him. And without my knowledge, I was looking at him to see what a medicine man looked like and turned into one. You can't be in the proximity of that kind of medicine without getting it. I've watched people come and be with the old medicine man, and their thoughts were in the material world, or their thoughts were in applying these times to what he was about, and the result was their utter disappointment, because everything that they tried to do before him and in his presence was scrambled. So none of it made sense to them. As opposed to when I sat with him, all made sense. There's a question or describe that ability, if you will, to be a medicine man. It's more about the human being you become and that you are. I wasn't chosen because I knew something good when I was young. I was born and my mother said, "This is the one." And when a medicine woman or a medicine man speaks, there is no why, there is no questions. It is so. And it isn't like I grew up and got a bicycle and decided I wasn't going to be a medicine man. The true medicine singers are usually raised in a way that they don't know there's another kind of life. So everything in that walk becomes the natural. Everything outside the walk becomes the unnatural.
I got it. So, in walking that way, becoming the medicine man, I'm just translating a little bit. It's that your being becomes medicine. Your presence, just as your guide's being instructed you. I hear non-verbally, just his way, the way he walked, the way he sat, the way he moved, and you were able to be in his aura, his field, and observe what it's like for someone to be so connected and so conscious of himself, his environment, and spirit. And I'm staining those in order just because the language does that, not because they're separate. Additionally, and please correct that if that understanding isn't correct.
You're going good.
Okay. I imagine that as part of the learning, or the uncovering even, there's a knowledge connected to the wisdom of the plants, the plant world, the animal world, and specifics having to do with looking at somebody and seeing what it is they may need for taking their next step, as it were. Could you speak a little bit to that part of it?
Something that, there again, there's a lot of myths involved with these times.
Yes.
The medicine man isn't like a conventional doctor. His medicine isn't either. He did no prescriptions, and I don't. I tell you, or I show you by my actions and what I do or don't do, that which heals me. The true medicine man will tell you he can heal no one except himself. Now, if there's something I do to me that helps you, you're welcome to that. The plant people, as with the animal people and all other things that Mother Earth has put here for us, are no different from the two-legged. The plant is a spirit body and a being. And the only way that plant is going to help you is if you can talk to the plant. I was seated before a plant person from the time the sun came up until it went down on a given day. And it was then that I realized the depth of the medicine way. I didn't look at the plant and say, oh, this is a bush and it's got this features and that features. I became one with it until it was no longer a plant, but yet again another relation. And then I realized that I could feel all the plant was feeling. And then it becomes part of my medicine. The certain plant may taste bitter to you in a tea, and you will make a face because that is not so good. Yet it is all healing to me. And the plant person had already told me, I will not be so good on your tongue, but then it is not your tongue that is sick. So there's the understanding of all these different things that are on the mother. There are certain people say, well, what about the poisonous plants or the poisonous mushrooms and things? I said, well, if you would have listened to them, they would have told you that they weren't for you. They have another purpose of being here. And a lot of people always identify poisonous or things that are not good for them or death as being something bad. Where in my walk, it requires me to understand them all the way up to death, and death itself as being the ultimate gift. I would eat all the plants unless some of them told me not to. So there is a certain balance that Mother plays on the earth, and if we live as one with her creations and grandfathers, then there is a reasoning behind it, why she has developed certain things. So those plant people that I extract or ask for, and I speak to them directly, and I make an offering to my Earth Mother so that I may take them. But I don't harvest them and sell them for the wealth of the man's world or any of those things. If you come to see the real medicine man, he will never sell you anything, ever. He will never charge you for his ceremonies, ever. These things are met in the exchange of those that understand. It does you no good to bring me your child that may be riddled with leukemia or something. Because if you bring that child in the wrong frame of mind, the child cannot heal because he believes as you. If the child is brought to me in the purest form of the walk, then all I tell the child, in essence, by my actions and by that which I do, that which I would do to heal me. And the child knows it, and it doesn't take words. It takes the child knows. And there's an old saying with the old one. He used to say to me, you don't have to believe in the medicine so much as you need to believe I do. So if you believe that I believe in my medicine, it's going to help you. That's the hidden secret.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there is something in belief. It's just a question perhaps of who it is that's doing or perceived to be doing the believing.
The funniest thing that I watch people doing in these times, I will watch amputations happen because you believe it made you better. People will believe in even extreme loss if they think it makes them better. So even an amputation is the process of belief. Something as simple as ingesting maybe some plant people I put together for you. If I make you believe that I believe it, and I ingest it, even knowing I ingested it helps you to believe it'll help you. Then when you ingest it, you're believing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one thing I know about the temple of the body in the Indian structure, it's that I didn't need anything to heal this because it was never out of balance and harmony. It's only after we took it out of that place that we started needed healing ways.
Mm-hmm. When would you say that occurred?
This happened long before the coming of the new brother and sister. But we were warned about these things, and that's why visions were so important to us. A lot of people don't realize how far in advance the Indian knew the coming of the new brothers and sisters to this Turtle Island. The owl rattle vision of it was 600 years before you arrived. And yet the medicine told us that you were coming. Darkness was already amongst us at that time. darkness is an illness, even if it comes in the uncurable form of fear. Fear came to us, and we recognized it as being out of balance and harmony, or haso. And the only thing that we done was try to get back there. There was a time, and this is in the tales of the Orca boy of my people, long before history, when we were able to do the ceremonies that would take us back into balance and harmony. The times when the elk woman lived, the woman who walked amongst the elk, and the elk would tell her which of them would do giveaway that year, so that my people would eat. All this balance and harmony that was going on was the greatest darkness was ever visited in the early times upon the Indian was when fear came in. And one person felt it, and when he felt that fear, it permeated the earth. The elk became afraid, and the birds became afraid, because something dark was in place. And then the Orca boy brought us a ceremony that took us back to that place again. And there was such a sadness to go with that tale, because even though we knew how to return to harmony and balance, we wouldn't be patient long enough to let the rest of them find it too. So we got to harmony and balance, and the elk people didn't understand yet, and the bear people didn't understand it, and the great sky people didn't understand, so they were still afraid. And because we're a fragile species, us two-legged, we went back to what we were doing and joined them in their fear before we could help by our demonstration of walking there. You know, nobody believes that you can make it all 26 miles in the marathon until the 26th mile. So they want to see you go a long ways before they trust you to finish that.
Yes, yes. Very interesting. Somehow it was set up that this darkness would occur, and for us to see light through it, maybe even because of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I was going to put any answer to that. I don't know where it all began.
Yeah.
But there's a certain thing that the old ones know, and that is, the Hopi say it best. If they throw a pebble into the pond at Hopi, this young fellow in Tibet gets wet. All things are connected, and so we don't need to look for or ask why darkness visited. We just have to know it did.
Yeah. And then make our moves from there, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Thomas, I want to thank you very much for being on the show, and we'll continue, if it's okay with you, so we can go into the next step of what it is you're doing in your life, which is kind of a masterful coordination that I think could be of benefit to our viewers and all.
Absolutely.
So, wonderful. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. And please give a call at 212-420-0800. We look forward to seeing you all next week.